Keep on the sunny side, always on the sunny side. Keep on the sunny side of life. It will help us every day, it will brighten all the way. If you keep on the sunny side of life.
To dread, what have I to fear? Leaning on the everlasting arms, I have blessed peace with my Lord so near. Leaning on the everlasting arms, leaning, safe and secure from all alarms, leaning on the everlasting arms, leaning on the everlasting arms. You know, the only thing that could make that better for me is if you were here to sing it with me. My name is Joe Martin. I'm the pastor at First Baptist Church in Toledo, Washington. And I get to work with some great people and have a great congregation here in beautiful little city close to Mount St. Helens. I want to talk to you today about waiting. This seems to be the year and the week for waiting. How good are you at waiting? How good are you at waiting? You know, we're not very good as a culture. We have fast foods and we have Instagram. We have even instant breakfast. And we are a nation of hornblowers. When somebody doesn't immediately blast through the light when it changes, we're not good at waiting. And this is especially true when we've been stressed and we've been cooped up for a long time, especially during this year with the pandemic. And people are very, very stressed. And some of you really are distressed and stressed over what's been happening in our country and with the election. There's actual people that I know of that are in part have been in the hospital from election stress. You know, we forget that this kind of waiting, as far as just a political thing, is not unique to this time. You know, we waited over 35 days in the year 2000 for a resolution. And at different times in American history, in the early years, according to the Smithsonian, we had drawn out elections. They were just about a way of life. You know, it took a long time to get all these people together to figure things out. You know, from one state to another to determine that they'd held their elections and how to get all those things, those ballots on horseback. In the year 1800, voting began in some states in April and continued through October. Imagine that. In 1876, that was considered to be the most contested election in the history of our country. They waited for 4 months before they learned the outcome of the election. And it had all the features that you would expect of that go along with it. All the allegations and back allegations, voter intimidation, you know, questions about how legit things were. And there was actually outright violence. You see, this goes on and on and on. This is something that is not just new to our time, but it's new maybe to you. You see, in uncertain times, we are, as a people of faith, called to learn how to wait. In another period of time in the history of God's people, a very tumultuous time where there were leadership changes, the people were worried and anxious. And Isaiah, the prophet, he in the book of Isaiah, he talks about this. Let me just read it to you. It's kind of a longer passage, but let me just read it and let it wash over you. Get yourself up on a high mountain, O Zion, bearer of good news. Lift up your voice mightily, O Jerusalem, bearer of good news. Lift it up. Do not fear. Say to the cities of Judah, here is your God. Behold, the Lord God will come with his might, with his arm ruling for him. Behold, his reward is with him, and his recompense before him. Like a shepherd, he will tend his flock. In his arm he will gather his lambs and carry them in his bosom. He will gently lead the nursing ewes. Who has measured the waters of the hollow of his hand and marked the heavens by a span and calculated the dust of the earth by the measure and weighed the mountains in the balance and the hills in a pair of scales? You see, what he's saying is, I'm still in charge. I'm God. Who has directed the Spirit of the Lord, or as his counselor has informed him? With whom did he consult, and who gave him understanding, and who had taught him in the path of justice, and taught him knowledge, and informed him with a way of understanding? You know what he's saying here? I know what's going on. You don't. Stop acting like you do, or are listening to people that do. He said, I know what's happening. Behold, the nations are like a drop in a bucket, and are regarded as a speck of dust on the scales. Behold, he lifts up the islands like fine dust. Even Lebanon is not enough to burn, nor its beast enough to be a burnt offering. All the nations are as nothing before him, and are regarded by him as less than nothing and meaningless. You know what he's saying here? He's saying these national issues are nothing compared to God, compared to God's big plan, and compared to the way God would choose to use you and use his people. So this is really important. You see, don't fall into the idolatry that they did of creating saviors out of your leaders who were the great, we have to ask, in 1876, who were the people running? Most of you don't know. Most of you don't remember the great issues that were the most contested issues of 100 years ago, as one pastor reminded us. You see, you don't know. And people won't probably remember them in this one, in about this one either, should time continue. In Isaiah 40:18, it says, to whom then will you liken God? Or what likeness will you compare with him? As for the idol, a craftsman casts it, a goldsmith plates it with gold, and a silversmith fashions chains of silver. He who is too impoverished for such an offering selects a tree and does not rot. He seeks out for himself a skillful craftsman to prepare an idol that will not totter. Do you not know? You know what he's really saying is we create idols for ourselves that ultimately will always disappoint us. Do you not know? Have you not heard? Has it not been declared to you from the beginning? Have you not understood from the foundations of the earth? It is he who sits upon the circle of the earth, and its inhabitants are like grasshoppers, who stretches out the heavens like a curtain and spreads them out like a tent to dwell in. He it is who reduces rulers to nothing, who makes the judges of the earth meaningless. Scarcely have they been planted, and scarcely have they been sown. Scarcely has their stalk taken root in the earth, but he merely blows on them, and they wither, and the storm carries them away like stubble. To whom then will you liken me, that I would be his equal? Says the Holy One. Lift up your eyes on high and see who has created the stars, the one who leads forth the host by number, who calls them all by name because of his greatness, of his might and the strength of his power. Not one of them is missing. Why do you say, O Jacob, and assert, O Israel, my way is hidden from the Lord, and the justice due me escapes the notice of my God? Don't put your hope in the temporary, in the temporary changes of politics or leaders, and don't do it. He's saying, look to God. Get your perspective back on him. Here's what you do. Here's what he says. Do you not know? Have you not heard? The everlasting God, the Lord, the creator of the ends of the earth, does not become weary or tired. His understanding is inscrutable. He gives strength to the weary, and to him who lacks might, he increases power. Though youths grow weary and tired, and vigorous young men stumble badly, yet those who wait on the Lord will gain new strength. They will mount up with wings like eagles. They will run and not get tired. They will walk and not become weary. We're weary, but if you wait, if you learn to wait, you will have strength from God that you can never imagine. You see, but waiting is hard, you would tell me. Waiting is hard, but we have to learn it. And we learn it by waiting. My soul, Psalm 62:5 says, my soul, wait in silence for God only, for my hope is from him. It's a conversation with yourself. You tell yourself, my soul, wait in silence for God only, for my hope is from him. You know what that means? That means wait. Don't be talking all the time. Hold your tongue and wait. Because you see, waiting is not only hard, but waiting is active. The Hebrew word kava, it literally means to hold it together, to bind it together. That is to pull things together, to expect, to gather, to look patiently, to wait, to tarry, to wait upon. The idea is it's active. You are choosing to wait. You're like a guy who would be out working really hard and he says, I got to go rest for a few minutes. I got to lay down and cool off. You really want to get out there and do it. You want to do something, but your waiting is active until you're really ready. You see, you know what waiting is? It's, like somebody said, it's weight training. It's God's version of weight training. This is so important because waiting, the third thing is waiting is faith. Habakkuk complained to God, how come things are not going the way I thought they would go? And then the Lord says, he answered and said, record the vision and inscribe it on the tablets, that the one who reads it may run. For the vision is not yet, for the appointed time. It hastens toward the goal, and it will not fail. Though it tarries, wait for it, for it will certainly come. It will not delay. You know what God says? I'm going to do it in my own time, and you wait. And I won't be late. I might not do it like you. It might not turn out like you expected. But you know what? Wait. Because I am God. I'm above all this. And my ways are not your ways, and your ways are not my ways. You trust me, and this will be your training and trusting. And that brings me to this, that waiting is maturing. You can't skip a step. You can't go from being a preschooler, a toddler, into being a teenager, and you can't go from being a teenager, skip being a teenager to being an adult. You really can't. Any time you try to do that, you just can't do it, really. We have to live. You have to wait. Waiting is maturing, and maturing takes time. You see, waiting grows you. And you know what else it does? Sometimes waiting reveals us. It reveals you. Immature people, when you're immature, you're impetuous. You don't want to wait. When are we going to get there? When are we going to get there? How many times have we heard that? But, waiting means that you don't jump into things. You don't just react on passion or emotion. You don't jump to conclusions or let yourself be led by those that jump to conclusions. Did you ever think or say anything as a kid that now, looking back on it, when you know more, you're embarrassed about it? Boy, I sure have a lot of things like that. Now that you know a lot more and you've lived a lot longer, you see things differently. Like all the advice you can give people when you're a teenager, all the advice you would give maybe your parents about how to parent, or how maybe, and then you have kids, and then you try and realize how hard it really is. You see, now you think back, wow, I didn't know what I was talking about. You were too immature. You jumped to conclusions, and you were sure of your conclusions. Psalm 25:3 says, indeed, none of those who wait for you will be ashamed. Those who deal treacherously without cause will be ashamed. This is the idea when you run out and just react, and that can happen in times like this. Later on, you're going to be embarrassed. You see, and what he's saying is, if you will wait, you will not be ashamed. If you will wait on God, you will not have anything later on to try and move away from or to be embarrassed about. You know, Proverbs says it like this: do not go out hastily to argue your case. Otherwise, what will you do in the end when your neighbor humiliates you? This is why it's important that we learn to wait on God, that we hold that, we gather it together until we know enough. You see, that's what waiting is. We're waiting on God. We're gathering until we know enough. Maturity ends up being proven by our integrity. That's what Psalm 25:21 says. Let integrity and uprightness preserve me, for I wait for you. That's what he's saying. Man, it seems like I'm trying to do the right thing, and I'm praying and I'm fasting and I'm thinking about it, and it just is going the wrong way, or this is going the wrong way. You know what he's saying? Let integrity and uprightness preserve me. He'll take care of you. For I wait for you. I wait for you. You know, every child, wants to be a teenager. Every teenager wants to be an adult. I think I saw somebody's meme that says, and every older adult wants to be a cat. And then it shows a cat like laying there, no worries. Maybe that's true. But you know, I've had a few little kids around in my life, and I just noticed that little babies don't wait very well. They tend to scream and cry and sometimes pitch fits. And of course, we can pitch fits too. So we have to remember this, Isaiah 25:9. And it will be said in that day, behold, this is our God for whom we have waited that he might save us. It's God that does the saving. This is the Lord for whom we have waited. Let us rejoice and be glad in his salvation. Let's wait on him, and we will rejoice. Psalm 27:14 says, wait for the Lord, be strong, and let your heart take courage. Yes, wait for the Lord. You know where courage comes from? You know where peace comes from? Waiting on God. My soul waits in silence for God only, for my hope is from him. Wait on him. I hope that you'll share this with somebody. If you want to talk about this in my Zoom meeting, you can look for the way to get that on this page. And remember, this weekend, whether you watch it online or you watch it in person at the stadium, this weekend I'm going to be talking about fighting for faith to be patient. It doesn't just mean about this time. It means in your own life, with God and with yourself, and especially with other people. God bless you. Remember, wait.